The applause began too quickly, and that was how Mara Voss knew something was wrong. It was the kind of applause meant to end debate, not reward wisdom. Polite, controlled, final. Mara sat near the end of the long boardroom table, hands folded, face calm, listening to the sound bounce off glass walls and framed mission statements. Asterline Freight had been posting record profits, yet the room felt like a funeral dressed in expensive fabric. Across from her, Vice President Rowan Crest leaned back as if gravity owed him a favor. He had been hired recently, but he spoke with the easy certainty of someone who believed numbers were more real than people. The screen behind him showed an upward line, quarter after quarter, bright as a promise. "We built this company on leverage," Rowan said. "We used bold financing to rise. Now we must protect what we built." Mara kept her pen still. She had started at Asterline years earlier, in the dispatch pit where phones never stopped. She had learned every pressure point of the network, the veteran loaders who could spot a mislabel at a glance, the route planners who could smell a storm 3 states away, the drivers who kept spare straps and spare patience in the same pocket. The company had not been built on leverage. It had been built on stubborn competence. Rowan clicked to his next slide. Cost containment. Operational tightening. "Bonuses end today," he said, as if announcing a weather update. "Raises will be paused. Hours will be trimmed to eliminate waste. We can do more with less." Around the table, board members nodded in practiced harmony. Nobody spoke. The quiet had a shape to it, and Mara recognized it. Fear wearing professional shoes. When the meeting ended, Rowan caught Mara as she gathered her notes. "You look unconvinced," he said. "I look like someone who reads the fine print," Mara replied. Rowan gave a soft laugh. "The fine print is where discipline lives." Mara met his eyes. "The fine print is also where disasters hide." The changes rolled out before the next early morning. Emails arrived with cold phrasing and warmer threats. Supervisors were told to enforce reduced shifts. Payroll updates cut overtime approvals. Promised raises turned into future considerations. Bonuses vanished without even a farewell memo, like a chair pulled out from under a tired crowd. The resignations started quietly, then became a flood. Drivers quit first. Warehouse crews followed, tired of being praised as essential while being scheduled like disposable parts. Planners walked away with their private maps of unwritten procedures. Customer support agents left when call volume doubled and empathy was replaced by scripts. Mara watched dashboards change color. Green to amber, amber to red. The network needed humans who knew when to bend rules to keep promises. Rowan had cut the very hands that performed the bending. Within days, several warehouses shut down. Staffing dropped below safe minimums. Dock doors stayed closed. Pallets piled up like unanswered questions. Contractors refused to pick up loads without guaranteed pay. Clients invoked penalty clauses, and legal began sweating through its sleeves. By the end of the third day, more than 3/4 of orders were delayed or not processed at all. The phones rang without mercy. The tracking system turned into a museum of stuck shipments. Rowan called it temporary turbulence. Mara stood on an overlook above the main sorting floor, watching silent belts and idle scanners. Her anger was real, but something else rose above it, neat and cold. Rowan believed leverage meant debt and pressure. Mara knew leverage meant knowledge, and Rowan had just handed her the sharpest kind. Mara did not confront Rowan in the hallway or send an angry email with bolded warnings. She had survived enough corporate storms to know that outrage was a candle in the wind. Evidence was a match in a dry warehouse. Sometime in the early morning, she walked into headquarters and felt the emptiness like a draft under a door. The operations floor was quieter. The breakroom coffee was untouched. Even the elevator seemed uncertain about stopping on certain levels. In her office, Mara opened the internal dashboards that Rowan treated like decorative wallpaper. Fulfillment rates, labor thresholds, vendor reliability, contract penalties. The numbers told a story that Rowan was trying to rewrite with optimism and debt. She began building a file, not a rant, a timeline. First, she saved the cost-cutting directive with Rowan's signature and the cheerful subject line about operational excellence. Then she saved the follow-up note from finance confirming bonus elimination, issued despite record profit reports. Then the warehouse manager messages that begged for overtime just to keep trucks from queuing into the street. Next, she pulled the staffing forecasts and compared them with the contractual service levels. Asterline had promised clients guaranteed pickups, guaranteed processing windows, guaranteed delivery lanes. Those promises were bound to labor. Rowan had severed the binding. Mara called people who still answered. She spoke with Dex, a dock supervisor in the southern hub who sounded like he had been chewing nails. "Half my crew walked," he said. "I am moving freight with hope and a forklift that hates me." She spoke with Lena, a route planner who had not quit yet but sounded tempted. "Rowan keeps asking why I cannot automate experience," Lena said. "I told him I would if experience came with a download link." Mara wrote down every detail, including the jokes. Jokes were often the last sign that people still cared. Then she dug into the debt. Rowan had bragged about leverage, but he had not explained the terms. Mara knew where to look. She had sat through enough lender calls to recognize the scent of hidden risk. The newest financing package had variable rates tied to performance covenants. Miss service levels, pay more. Miss again, pay now. Miss enough, lose control. The same leverage that built Asterline could devour it. Mara scheduled a quiet meeting with Tess Varn, the in-house counsel who had a gentle voice and a ruthless memory. Tess read the penalty clauses and raised one eyebrow. "If clients leave, lenders can demand accelerated repayment," Tess said. "And if lenders panic, the board will panic." Mara nodded. "Then we need the board to see what Rowan refuses to see." "How?" Tess asked. "Without becoming the villain." Mara smiled. "I am fine being the villain in Rowan's story. I just prefer being the author." She prepared a second file for public viewing. Simple charts, clean timelines, no drama. She also prepared a third file, locked and labeled, for the moment Rowan tried to blame someone else. Before leaving for the day, Mara walked the operations floor. She talked to the remaining teams, not with slogans, but with truth. "I cannot promise comfort," she told them. "I can promise I am not here to watch you drown." A few people nodded. One loader laughed bitterly. "You going to fix him?" he asked, meaning Rowan. Mara looked up at the executive-level windows where lights still glowed. "I am going to let him explain himself," she said. "Then I am going to make sure everyone hears the full explanation." That night, Rowan sent out another memo about holding the line. Mara saved it, filed it, and slept like someone sharpening a blade. Around the middle of the third day, the board called an emergency session. Rowan framed it as a chance to reassure leadership. Mara recognized it as the sound of a dam cracking. The room filled faster than usual. Some directors arrived with coats still on, eyes already tired. Rowan stood at the front, hands open, voice calm, performing steadiness like a professional. "We are experiencing short-term delays," he said. "The market is noisy. We will stabilize." He clicked through slides that smoothed chaos into gentle curves. He used words like headwinds and optimization. He did not use the words warehouse closures, mass resignations, or penalties. Mara waited until he finished. Anger would give Rowan something to dismiss. Calm gave him nothing. "May I add context?" she asked. Rowan gestured with staged grace. "Of course, we value transparency." Mara stood and connected her device to the display. Her first slide was a copy of Rowan's own memo, the one that ended bonuses and cut hours. A signature line sat at the bottom like a confession. Then she showed the results. A map of hubs with closures marked in blunt blocks. A timeline of resignations by role, spiking like a siren. A contract list with penalty clauses highlighted, each tied directly to missed service levels. Board members leaned forward. One director, Ken Vossler frowned. 78% delayed, he said. That cannot be right. It is right, Mara replied. It is also generous. Several orders are not delayed. They are abandoned. Rowan stepped forward. These are operational growing pains, he said. Mara is overreacting. Mara clicked again. An email chain appeared, showing supervisors requesting overtime and being denied under Rowan directive, even as orders backed up. Overreacting is when someone yells, Mara said. This is documentation. Another director asked about clients. Mara displayed a short list of notices, termination warnings, penalty invoices, service failure alerts. She kept the language neutral, letting the facts do the shouting. Then she moved to the debt. Rowan's face tightened. That is not relevant, he said. It is the most relevant, Mara answered, and displayed the covenant summary. Variable rates tied to performance. Triggers tied to client retention. Acceleration terms if operational control failed. A hush fell over the room. Tess, counsel, cleared her throat. This package is enforceable, she said. If conditions are met, lenders can demand action. Rowan tried to laugh. Leverage built this company, he said. We can manage leverage. Mara tilted her head. Leverage multiplies, she replied. It multiplies growth when you respect reality. It multiplies collapse when you insult it. Questions followed, sharper each time. Why cut during record profits? Why ignore staffing thresholds? Why refuse contingency planning? Rowan answered with slogans. Every sentence dug deeper. Finally, the chair asked Rowan to step outside. Rowan froze, then forced a smile and left. When the door shut, the board turned to Mara. What do you recommend? The chair asked. Restore hours immediately, Mara said. Reinstate bonuses retroactively. Announce a stabilization package with clear pay guarantees. Call key clients today and offer service credits. Suspend further leverage decisions until operations verifies the impact. Ken Vossler breathed out. And Rowan. Mara held her gaze steady. Rowan built a narrative. We should stop funding it. The chair nodded once. Bring him back in. Rowan returned, still wearing confidence like armor. The chair spoke with careful formality. Rowan was placed on administrative leave pending review. Mara watched his face change, not into rage, but into disbelief. He had believed leverage made him untouchable. Now he learned a simpler rule. In a crisis, the person who knows the system becomes the system. Rowan did not leave quietly. He left like a man convinced the building would apologize and call him back. By the next morning, rumors spread with the speed of bad freight. Someone leaked that Mara sabotaged staffing projections. Someone claimed she had been hoarding information. Someone suggested she wanted Rowan's job and had staged the crisis to seize it. Mara read the chatter without surprise. Rowan treated truth like a competitor. He could not beat it, so he tried to smear it. The board responded the only way boards respond when frightened. They demanded speed. They named Mara interim head of operations with a mandate that sounded flattering and felt like a dare. Stabilize the network before lenders noticed the smell of panic. Mara accepted with conditions. First, she would speak directly to employees, not through sanitized memos. Second, she would reopen overtime approvals immediately. Third, she would restore bonuses retroactively for the quarter, not as charity, but as repayment for stolen trust. The chair hesitated. Finance protested. Mara did not blink. You can pay people now, she said, or you can pay penalties later. Penalties do not unload trucks. They approved the package. Mara moved fast. She called Dex in the southern hub and told him to post extra shifts with double-time options where legal permitted. Dex laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. You mean I can staff my docks again? He asked. Yes, Mara said, and I want the safest crew you can build. She called Lena and asked for the top routing failures. Lena answered in under a minute because Lena had been screaming them into the void for days. Mara implemented temporary lane freezes, rerouted high-value freight through the most stable hubs, and created a triage list for stalled orders. She called key clients directly, not with excuses, but with ownership. "We failed," she told them. "Here is why. Here is what changes today. Here is the credit we are issuing. Here is my number if you need a human, not a script." Some clients were furious. Some were skeptical. A few were quietly relieved to hear a voice that did not sound like a brochure. Meanwhile, Rowan tried to claw back control from the outside. He sent messages to directors, warning them that Mara was reckless with spending. He hinted that she had always resisted modernization. He offered to return if the board restored his authority. Mara answered without sending a single insult. She sent the board the third file she had prepared, the locked one. It contained every denial of overtime, every dismissal of warnings, every instruction that prioritized short-term cost cuts over contractual obligations. It also contained a summary of Rowan debt decisions and the moment he insisted staff should adapt without resources. Tess confirmed the documentation was clean and defensible. The board stopped taking Rowan calls. Rowan attempted one final move. He contacted a lender representative, suggesting the board had lost operational control. It was a foolish gambit, a match tossed into gasoline. Mara anticipated it. She scheduled a lender update call and invited the board chair, finance lead, and Tess. She presented the stabilization plan, the restored labor package, and the improving fulfillment curve. She offered transparency before panic could form. The lender did not applaud. Lenders never applaud. But the tone shifted from threat to caution. By the next day, warehouses reopened. Not all, not instantly, but enough. Conveyor belts began moving again. Trucks rolled out. Tracking screens slowly returned to green. Mara walked the floor and spoke with teams who had stayed and those who returned. "I cannot erase what happened," she said. "But I can make sure the next person who says leverage understands that leverage includes you." A loader smiled tiredly. "What about Rowan?" he asked. Mara gave a small, neat smile. "He wanted leverage," she said. "He is about to learn how it feels when it swings back." Rowan's swing back did not arrive as a dramatic firing with guards in a cardboard box. It arrived as silence, which was worse for a man who fed on rooms. The board completed its review in the following days and used words like breach, negligence, and material risk. Rowan lawyers tried to paint his decisions as standard business practice. Mara never argued with adjectives. She returned to verbs and receipts. Rowan had authorized cuts during record profits without operational validation. Rowan had ignored safety minimums. Rowan had denied overtime while contract penalties piled up. Rowan had encouraged lenders to doubt the board, an act that sounded strategic until it was written down. The board voted to terminate him for cause. For cause meant no soft landing, no golden handshake, no tasteful farewell note praising his service. It also meant the board could present its findings to insurers and lenders as corrective action, which calmed the covenant alarms. Leverage stopped multiplying panic. Rowan responded by attempting to launch a public narrative. He contacted a trade journalist and offered an anonymous quote about an internal coup. He hinted at corruption. He hinted at sabotage. The journalist asked for evidence. Rowan offered confidence. Confidence does not print well. Asterline issued a straightforward statement. Leadership changes following operational disruptions. Immediate stabilization measures implemented. Service commitments being restored. Nothing flashy, nothing emotional. Just a company stepping away from a cliff. Mara focused on the part Rowan never respected. The people. She held an open forum on the operations floor, standing on a pallet like it was a stage that finally deserved her. The crowd was tired, wary, and ready to leave again if the company tried another trick. Mara did not give a motivational speech. "I am not here to sell you faith," she said. "I am here to repay what was taken and to stop it from happening again." She outlined the restored bonus plan, the overtime policy, and the new rule that no compensation cuts could be issued without operational sign-off and a retention risk review. She announced a safety council led by dock supervisors and drivers. She also announced a transparent dashboard visible to every manager, so excuses could not hide behind closed doors. Dex raised a hand. What if the next executive says leverage again? He asked, half joking. Mara smiled. Then I will ask which kind, she said. The kind that lifts, or the kind that snaps. Laughter moved through the crowd, cautious at first, then real. Clients returned slowly. Some demanded additional audits. Some required service credits for months. Mara agreed, because Pride had never delivered a package on time. With staff rebuilding and routing stabilized, the backlog thinned. Warehouses reopened in phases. Fulfillment rates climbed like a patient learning to walk. The board offered Mara the permanent role, with a new title that sounded impressive and heavy: Chief Network Officer. She accepted, but she also wrote her own terms into the acceptance letter. Operational expertise would be treated as an asset, not overhead. Bonuses would be tied to performance and paid transparently. Debt decisions would require operational risk assessment, signed by both finance and field leadership. The chair read the terms and said, "You are making it hard for future vice presidents." Mara replied, "That is the idea." Weeks later, Mara received a forwarded message from Tess. Rowan had applied for a senior role at another shipping firm. The recruiter had called for references. Tess replied with a single sentence: "Please review the attached board findings." Mara did not add anything. Revenge did not require extra seasoning. She looked out over the humming sorting floor, listening to the honest music of work returning. On a wall monitor, the fulfillment percentage held steady in the green. Leverage had built Asterline once. Now leverage meant something else. It meant the company could finally stand without standing on anyone.